Welcome to the start of a new anime review series. This is starting a series that actually had its premiere just yesterday. Actually, it was like 2 days ago. And I'm finally getting a chance to talk about it because I've had some delays in getting into this one, but now I'm basically officially watching it. What's the name of this series, you might ask? Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World. This is reviewing the very first episode of the series, Encounter. This episode roughly adapts the first three chapters of the series, uh, of the first light novel. It does skip some stuff here. Now, I should point out, though, that the main character's name is Kaga. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah, that's his name. And the episode starts out with him. He wakes up in a barn. Now, how the heck he got here? That's kind of explained via flashback. Basically, this is more detail in the prologue, which they skipped. Basically, he would just click on this fantasy video game and he entered the world. So technically, this actually is the first time someone's been isekai'd. And here's the thing: it's not that much a magic circle, so they bring him here. He basically kind of brought himself here, and he's able to wear his tracksuit he normally wears. Now, when I saw it, I'm like, that's interesting. This makes the third anime I've watched where the main protagonist, what he wears as soon as he arrives in his fantasy world, is a tracksuit. Now, there have officially been three. This is the third anime I've come across that this has happened with. The first being Konosuba, and the second being ReZero with Katsuma and Sosuma respectively. And now it's Kaga's turn. Yes, the third guy to come to Isekai World wearing a tracksuit. But there's one difference. One, the fact his tracksuit's all black. Also, he's barefoot. So he steals a pair of sandals. Which, by the way, he does in the book too. Basically, the episode started out with the beginning of chapter 1. There's actually a whole section of chapter 1 they skipped over. Probably cut due to time, that I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow adapt this for a flashback. Because he wakes up, gets nails on, looks to hay. We have his sword, the original, which this is how he finds in the book, just underneath the hay, along with the ring of durability. Identifies, and apparently he has his ability called Identify, where he can identify stuff. You just walk outside. Walk outside, very peaceful setting. Now there's a little more here what's going on here in the book, where a little more stuff's going on here. Where you see him just have to hide because a farmer and some other villager just have been walking by. And this lasts for about a minute or two. And then all of a sudden bandits show up. Yes, seriously, bandits show up. Before I continue, I should name the studio who makes this show. Passionate. Yes, the very same studio who did another series I've reviewed, High School DxD. Though they didn't work on the original first three seasons of the show, they worked on the fourth, and to date, the last season officially to air, I've heard rumblings about season 5, but nothing officially confirmed yet. Nope. But yeah, they're the one who actually makes the show itself. Now, I have heard of one other show that they have made that has become infamous, and it's very controversial, called Interspecies Reviewers. I have not actually seen this one. Nope. But this one raised a humongous amount of controversy when it was brought over here due to its unnecessary censoring. Yes, this was Funimation's fault. It is the only Funimation license I've seen as of recently who actually did have the license to publish over here. And they lost it due to too much censoring. Yeah, it is the only one I've ever heard of. I've heard that other shows have basically kind of lost their streaming rights, per se. That, well, Funimation has done over the years. but I've never heard one to the extent that what they did. Now, this is done on Crunchyroll, so there is some censoring and the censoring of words too. Now you're probably thinking, did the book do this too? Yes, it did. Oh, yes, it did. So that's something to carry over in the book. So he basically also they're actually showing graphic detail in here, which they actually kind of vaguely mention this book. They expanded this scene greatly, though we technically don't start here. I forgot I should mention we actually show him basically killing somebody. He said, what a crappy video game. Well, he says a more colorful one, SHIT, but I'm not gonna say it here. And then he sees the leader. Excuse me, this is where a bandit's bandana. I think in the book they've heard it as a thief. This is of course the fan translation of the book. And he just walks up to, he just basically runs in with his sword, and he beheads him. Yes, seriously, he beheads the guy. Other the bandits, he proceeds to slice in half. And he manages to kill all but two. The other two are killed by villagers. And then the chief basically thanks him right after this happens. There's a little bit that happens right afterward. They cut that hair, probably due to time. And the chief, I should point out though, is a bit thinner in the anime than he is in the book, which I thought that was kind of a weird change, but okay. So a lot of his stuff that's shown in the actual anime is in the book itself. The only thing that's not seen here, there's a little bit of minor additional stuff that happens to him, like the fact that in the evening, in the very same day this happens, where you have Soga, where he has dinner with him and his wife, which they cut, probably due to time. They cut a lot of stuff for this particular chapter. I do mean a lot. So, basically, here's how things progress afterwards. He goes to a shed that has, like, all of the stuff they basically looted from the bandits. And the guy, and apparently also that he looks over this particular bandana and just ordered a bandana. Now, he identified the bandana as the leader of the bandits, whereas as a bandit bandana, basically a very valid bandana. So the chief looked into it and found the guy who actually stole it, swiped it with the ordinary bandana. So his crime for stealing is to be sold into slavery. Yes, and they also bring up this thing called an intelligence card, which this actually is from the book, so that's one thing the anime did get right. Yeah, its description in the book, I don't think they show illustration pictures of the damn thing, but this thing is in the book, so it's not something made for the anime. And if you're curious, basically they kind of scan the hand. So they scan that, and they gave him basically his profession as a slave. And then, of course, basically the very next day, Soga and the chief go to this town called Vale to solve all the equipment. Now, I should point out though, in the book, they do in fact do this, like in the anime, but they completely remove the scene of him selling all the stuff. Yeah, that was all completely cut from the anime. Like in the case of, by the way, what happens in the village before he leaves is that he goes on a hunt for slow rabbits. It's the first major creature he comes across that he ends up killing in the series, aside from humans, of course. Yeah. Also, this whole thing covered in blood. Like, lots of more blood than usual you would see here. Yep. Yeah, the rabbit hunt thing, I think they might save for probably next episode. It's possible, but I don't know. So, there's a whole sequence of him basically selling all the equipment, every single individual item for certain prices. And the anime, they completely removed this scene. Probably due to the fact it was I'm reading it, it's a slow moving scene. The whole scene takes up approximately about 15 pages of the damn book. Yeah, it's a long, drawn out, boring sequence. And then we cut to when it gets to the town itself. Now, I do appreciate the camera angles for this episode. It's really gorgeous. Like him basically looking up like the archway. I would do that too. So, and the way the anime showed, apparently Oscar, he sold all this stuff, and then they go to the Night Brigade office, where a beautiful knight comes out, confirms that he is legit and everything is legit. So he basically collects the bounty and gives like And of course, they also sell the guy off as a slave, where they sell him off where he gets 50% and the chief gets the other half of the money. Now, in the book, he actually goes someplace else. And then he comes back to the actual slave traders. Well, they refer to it as his mansion. Now, the way I read it in the book, it gave me a different picture in mind exactly what the heck this place looked like. But the way they present the anime, I'm like, wow, this actually is really good. And they show off the fact these actually have two rooms. I think in the case of the first one, they vaguely brought up how the guy was sold. In the anime, it's like, oh, we'll buy him for 30,000 nerns. Now, that's actually the currency used in the series, so another thing, another item that's completely accurate. They do show the currency what it looks like. So they sell the guy off, and now in the book, basically, Soga does go back to the place. In the anime, he just happily outside after the chief leaves him behind with his small belongings, and he goes right back inside, where he basically sits down in a very room full of expensive paintings and furniture. And then, of course, we see a maid come in. Now, this maid is actually Roxanne. Yes, this scene is actually her anime debut. Now, they do make some minor changes to her for this particular scene. Number one, she actually is wearing a maid's hat. Number two, her outfit, completely accurate to how it was depicted in the actual color image of the book. Same, except the blue is darker in the anime than it was in the cover of the light novel. Also, her chest size is bigger. Yes, for some reason, the anime made her chest size bigger. For unknown reason, they did. I'm not sure exactly why, but they did. That's what Passionate did. They basically increased this woman's chest size for no reason. Also, she gets some tea, and I do appreciate the scene is mostly unaltered from the book itself. And I should point out, though, it's much more longer in the book. Now, by the way, I should point out, though I was reading the book, each chapter is broken up into parts. This scene takes up most of chapter 3. Yes, most chapter 3 is just one scene alone, where he tries the thing. There's also the thing about fantasy stuff in here, where there's lots of censoring, here. Excuse me, but there's a good reason for it. I at least believe this over other stupid censoring. Looking at you two, lover, with a stupid glare, like, oh, the blinding light for a stupid censor, like for censoring groping. Here it makes total sense because we're butt naked. First of all, the warrants they covered up, and then of course, well, they have more stuff where he thinks about stuff due to Roxanne sexually, which, by the way, he does do stuff in the book. I'm not going to go into detail of it because I'd rather not lose my super scope by describing a man's sexual exploits with basically what it appears to be a demi-human. That's the type of person this person is. They refer to it as a wolfkin. Now, I should point out, though, in the second book, I think it was in one of the translations I read, they did refer to her as a wolfkin. I believe in book 2 they did that. Yes, in book 2, they referred to her as a wolfkin. In the first book, the translation I read, they referred to her as a werewolf, not a wolfkin. Now, her being referred to as a wolfkin, they do remove the fact she's a beast of warrior. They cut that out completely in the anime. But, of course, you have Alan. By the way, the guy the slave owner's name is Alan. Which, they never gave really a description of him in the actual book itself. It's just that he has a mansion. Here, he just basically looks like a very much a well-dressed guy with a cape. Appearance-wise, reminds me of a few other characters I've seen, older guys in the anime. Like, Gaz Straight Up basically is a good person in mind to describe this guy similar to. Trying to think, though, who else? There are others, per se, who he looks very similar toward. Oh, he looks like that governor who appeared in Hound of the Seven Demon Lords. It's a very similar appearance to this guy. So, and he has it where where Saga's piqued his interest about Roxanne, and he basically recommends a price. Now the price, I should point out, though, he says that she's being available to be sold for is the accurate price that she's basically listed in the book. Which, good job. That's another thing that got correct here. Yep. And he said to give discount. Now the amount that he was doing discount toward, it's actually a different, slightly different number than it was in the book. The translation, the subtitle I read. I think what it said was like 425,000. I believe the book said was, and the anime was 422,500. So it was a little bit less, but still close enough. And by the way, he pondered this for an entire part about this. Heck, there's even a thing of buy slave, yes or no. Yeah, there's that feature in there. They actually don't have it here for some reason. And he also brings up, they also change his supposed profession in the anime. In the book, he's referred to as a free man. In the anime, they suggest he's an adventurer, despite the fact he's not part of the Adventurers Guild. There was actually two guilds in town, where the other guild is Explorers Guild. Apparently, if you're a senior explorer, you can join the Adventurers Guild, which did not go today. He'll probably go next week. So he does mention that he can actually keep Roxanne on sort of a sold basis for like 5 days, hold her off 5 days, and they do add a little bit in here when after he leaves the room, where he does mention to Roxanne that a customer has interest in her. And she says looking forward to spending time with him. And then he basically says, oh, he has 5 days to raise his money. Now, they don't actually go into details about this, but they'll probably go into detail about it next week. For a lot of the stuff they adapted for this episode, they did a really good job with this stuff. Yes. Nothing really majorly changed here per se, except they probably trimmed off like a lot of stuff here. A lot of it due to time, because a lot of this book, basically, this episode covers roughly mostly, like I said, most of the first 3 chapters. Do I think they might finish up next week? Excuse me. How they done it? They might get go for one more episode before they finally move on to book 2. Oh, and in case you're curious, though, despite like the series called Harem and a Labyrinth, he does meet a second girl to book 3. Yep, that's definitely true. And I've only read as of right now book 4, and there's 8 books left. And they do show off, like in the opening title sequence of the episode, what the other girls look like. Yep. But not much to say for the first episode. So hopefully next week we actually get more of this stuff going forward, okay? But yeah, I'm getting kind of tired right now, so I'm probably going to save the comic corner I wanted to do for tomorrow because I'm getting very sleepy right now. So yeah, so expect like at least 1, maybe 2 comic corners tomorrow, and I'll review for Fruit Evolution and Case Closed. Okay, next video. Bye.